Welcome to the first movie episode of Inspired Content for 2017. I'm sort of cheating this time because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and if I don't get out to see this now, I might miss it while it's in theaters. So I'm gonna go see Rogue One, and then once that's done, I will give my thoughts and inspirations I took away from it. I'll try to be devoid of spoilers, so you should be good. Alright, I'll see you on the other side. Overall, I would have to say I would rate this a score of schwa, because Star Wars needs its own rating system. As a big fan of Star Wars, I liked it. But I'm also gonna say the first chunk of the movie seemed a little too broken. It wasn't as streamlined and tight as I would hope. But that's from just a general storytelling aspect in my mind. But for the setting, world building and whatnot, yeah. And so for a Star Wars movie, I would say this is one of the best ones. I would also say that one of the things I found absolutely wonderful about this movie was, I don't want to call it the diversity of characters, but it was a little less like some of the others where they're really just normal people surrounded by a fantastic world. I mean the characters are never normal people, but it always just seems like they're like people you can expect to encounter on the street, put into costume, like spacey outfits, and they're surrounded by all the weird and interesting world. In this movie, I didn't get that feeling, and it was really, really nice. I got the feeling that the characters in this movie, they were all part of that rest of the world. They weren't sort of that middle aisle with everybody on the outside. It was really part of everything. And so I would definitely recommend this movie. I think if I were to build up a collection of movies to try to introduce people to Star Wars, this would be something I would play in the lineup of the original trilogy. So it would be Rogue One, the original trilogy, and work into the new trilogy, hopefully, the new sequels. I'm not going to bash the prequels. There's some definite things I would fix, and at some point it might be fun to outline those, but I include those two in the storyline because it's part of the world building for me. But part of that world building is also examining dropped story ideas or things that are touched on, but I want to expand further. So, along those lines, there's the fight against the Imperial tank towards the beginning in the city. And in that scene, there is a little guy. He looks like an Ugnaught to me, but I don't think that's what they were going for. He doesn't have the nose for it, I don't think. But he has a lot of similarities to that. And I would love to see a story where he is the main character. He is the hero of the story, and it's his epic story arc. I mean, he was tight-packed, tiny little, fierce, devoted fighter. And I want to see more of that kind of character, yeah, in a sci-fi story, and yeah, I'd love to see that. There was a scene, I'm not going to say too much about it, but where I swear there was a big white furry humanoid with a battle harness in a battle scene, allied with a human or a couple humans, and my mind wants to see a story of people who train. I don't want him to be an intelligent, sapient being. I want him to be sort of like a Bigfoot, like humans caught and trained Bigfoot to be sort of like a creature that helps them in battle. Sort of like horses are to cavalry. I would love, but not being a ride necessarily, but so having these trained. It looked like a wampa to me, so I'm gonna say trained wampas in battle. I would be interested in seeing a story where that was one faction in a conflict like that. Okay, I originally thought this story was going to be about a rogue mercenary who gets hired by the rebellion to complete a task that they can't do themselves, and the task would require they want her to take a group of rebel soldiers, and she won't take the rebels because the rebels will always be allied. Their loyalty is to the rebellion, and she's going to need people who will be loyal to her to complete the job, or at least look to her no matter what to get the job done, because they have a vested interest in her and the job they're doing, not to what the rebel forces would do. So I got the feeling that she was going to pick people, loners and misfits with talents and agendas that she can find a way to network into what she's been hired to do, and they'd complete the job, and then it's just kind of like mercenaries and rebels aren't together, they're just working together on this one job, and once the job's done they kind of shatter and go their own way, because they're loners and misfits. They're mercenaries, and some of them will get, you know, revenge on an imperial officer who killed their family, but they're not going to join the rebellion. They're just there to get that last little stab at somebody. I also speculated when we first saw the trailer that had her in the black armor that I thought it would be a really good story idea, which was the first hint in my mind that this was not the direction they were going to go. And so I felt she was going to be a petty lowlife in the streets, a thief, some little thing like that, who gets pinched by stormtroopers at a site where they have held valuable rebel soldiers and pilots, and because they're in the same facility when they are transporting prisoners, she gets thrown into the transport with them. So when the rebels come and attack the transport and free the prisoners, she's among these valuable rebel soldiers. She gets taken with them, and she's resistant and kind of hostile to the rebels as much as she would be to the Imperials, but they kind of absorb her into the rebellion because she doesn't have anywhere else to go, and so she ends up on a mission or two where the freed prisoners were on a mission that she's included in, and when it seems like everything's going wrong and more of the rebel troops are getting picked off, she steps up and gets them out of the situation, and because she's good at it, when they get back, the people she helped get out, they hold a certain amount of loyalty to her that they'll follow her when another mission comes up. And the next mission that comes up is they have to go and do something, find out something, and when they're on the mission they find out it has to do with the stolen plans. This is a big one. This isn't some little mission that they thought they would be on. This is the big one for the rebellion, the one that may sway the point in their favor. And when they get there, situations happen that kind of force her hand, to the point where it's revealed that she's part of an Imperial Special Ops force, and so she has to pick off the rest of the rebel group that she's with. And the only person to really survive that long enough was the male lead, who would get the signal out and get the plans to the rebellion. And so it's kind of this sense of this heroic character. She gets into this situation, turns out to be really ideal for the situation, and only because she is a traitor. She will be a villain character that betrays the rebellion. And I was like, that would be an epic story worth telling. So, I mean, I probably could vamp the story in a new way that would alter it enough that it's not set in Star Wars, but you could take the same concept. One of the things that I got overhyped about was the Man in White. And in my mind, this was going to be a hardcore, stone cold, awesome person. He was going to be some sort of ambitious grand admiral who would, while being big in the Imperial military and being a powerful member of the Empire, was playing his own side game, where he's making a move on taking and securing power within the Empire in a way that would, you know, he could pass it off, you know, blame it on rebel forces doing some of this stuff, and all the while securing more resources and loyal troops, and eliminating potential opposition or hurdles in his path to a coup, where he could just move in on the Empire for himself. And I think a story in which you have what seems like a two-faction conflict, where there's this third faction that one of the sides thinks is theirs, and the other side thinks it's the other side's, but he's playing his own game and he's good at it. I think that's what I was sort of expecting, and I'm kind of sad there weren't more elements of that in there. And just because the concept of the character was pretty good, I think it felt a little watered down from my expectations, but that's on me because I expected it to be different. I like the idea of a group of monks who are not force sensitive, but nonetheless they can't use the force, but with the loss of their sight, they are more aware of how the force moves around them, and they use that to their advantage. And I like the idea of like this group of them that take in blind children and train them to be fighters, like the character in this movie, to serve as agents for the Force or some kind of agenda that they have. And I like this as part of a science fiction setting with technology and spaceships, where there's this sort of mystic group of blind monks that are aware of the flow of things around them through a different way. I like it in the sci-fi. I imagine it could be done as a fantasy and maybe remove it from the Star Wars universe in a way, give it its own space to be. But yep, so those are some of the ideas I had for these for the movie Rogue One. It's right up there. I definitely say it's a good movie on its own merits, and it's also a Star Wars movie, so I'm gonna love it right there anyway. So I hope there were some ideas in there for prompts and inspirations. I may be dabbling with writing things like this in the future. I may dabble in some other Star Wars stuff in the future. But until then, take care.